darlings, it's Michaela. My elephant in the room is that I dyed my eyebrows this morning, and I feel like I had a little like Angry Bird situation earlier. I hope you're not too distracted. Anyway, I am so excited to talk about this topic. So peri/menopause plight, which is the because I am in perimenopause, because of menopause, I have gained weight. I have anxiety. Hi, Wayne. I love that more men than women signed up for this talk. Thank you for being here. I have insomnia. I wrote these things down somewhere. I have low libido. I have brain fog. I have pain. I have hot flashes. I have belly fat. And that this is just because I am at this age and at this kind of hormonal junction, transition, therefore I have this whole mountain of bullshit symptoms. And the thing that made me want to make this video, made me want to have this talk, is that every woman over 40 does not experience these symptoms, and namely fat burners. And so anyway, what this so I've been in a fat burning mode and working with people in it for 13 years. So I am 48, I will be 49 next month. And so what does that make? So since I was 35, 36, I've been in this mode. So it's I kind of started before perimenopause was an issue, but it's never been an issue because of my metabolic positioning. And that is the case for fat burners. And so I wanted to bring this up, because I have such a strong, almost level of defiance in me about wishing to feel like I have some say over what's going on with my body. So when people kind of lay down and die because of their age and because of this hormonal positioning at their time in life, it totally goes up my ass a mile. But the thing that's so cool about that is that if you actually understand what the real culprit is regarding these symptoms, you can actually do something about it, versus feeling like you're just kind of, crushed on the wheels of your physiology. And you don't have to be. Okay? So that's what we're going to talk about. So perimenopause, menopause is the ultimate metabolic stress test. So basically the hormonal shift that goes on in these two phases of life essentially is just, it's a stressor for our metabolic function. And so perimenopause or menopause on its own doesn't cause these things: weight gain, anxiety, insomnia. Talked about it. Low libido, belly fat, insomnia. That's not the cause. It just reveals where your metabolism is. If it's resilient enough to handle the stress, without estrogen's buffering effects. So estrogen, hi Mario, I love it. Another gentleman, it's amazing. Please take this to your mothers and the women in your life. So estrogen, essentially, when levels fluctuate and decline, the body has to rely on other systems, on other kind of strongholds in the body, including metabolic flexibility, insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial health. I will break down what that actually means. I'll break down what all of these things mean. And nervous system regulation. So if these systems, if these positions, this positioning is weak, that's when we have a ton of frickin' symptoms. Women will talk about I just kind of fell off a cliff and suddenly I'm just, rapidly gaining weight. Like I have hot flashes. It's like the rug was pulled out from underneath their body, but it's not because of the dip or absence of estrogen. It's that the metabolic health was not what it could be, should be. So when estrogen kind of left the conversation or declined, basically all of these other symptoms rushed in because you didn't have any sort of leeway, margin, I'm going to say protection even. But when our metabolic underpinnings are strong, this is like no big deal. And that is the deal for fat burners. It's so funny. I feel like in so many of these more recent conversations that we've been having here on Tuesdays, this has not been the knowledge that I've possessed for some time. It has been stuff that I'm learning more about now because I'm in awareness that, oh, Jesus, like what we do actually helps with this. And it hasn't been glaringly evident because some of us, a lot of us, have never dealt with the shit in the first place. So I didn't get into a fat burning mode because I knew that it would help prevent perimenopausal symptoms. I was in a fat burning mode because of issues with emotional eating over a decade ago, found that it was quite forgiving. And as I've lived this and witnessed other women who have gotten into this mode and suddenly they don't have daily headaches anymore, they've like lost their belly fat, they've lost 10, 20, 30, 40, 70 pounds when nothing was working before. And so it's been my own experience, but also witnessing these other women where nothing worked before, but now this does, and that they've either sidestepped crappy symptoms or those symptoms have gone away. So that's what we are going to talk about. So when our body is able to rely on metabolic flexibility, I'm just going to define these terms: insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial health, and nervous system regulation, we don't deal with symptoms. And so something that I also feel like a crazy person about is when people label someone who isn't experiencing something or who is dealing with something as that's just like you, like you're just lucky. And I have to say, with the body, there is logic. Like there isn't really luck. And so maybe we miss the train that could have taken us out because we stepped a little further faster. But with how you work, it is because of how things are. So if you ever want something to change, it's not just because of wishing for it. It's because of actually doing something different to create a different reality internally, and therefore how you function or how you feel or how you look changes as a result of that. So what is metabolic flexibility? Metabolic flexibility simply is the ability to use both sugar and fat for energy. That's how we're designed. Most of us are just really good at burning sugar. We're really good at storing fat. We're not so great at using that fat later for energy. But metabolic flexibility indicates that you are good at using both. Yay, amazing. We should be using sugar in times of stress, brief, fight or flight, and then in general, we should be using fat all of the other times, which is most of the time. So when you can flip back and forth, that is advantageous. That's how we're meant to run, and it helps offset perimenopausal symptoms. Insulin sensitivity, I think maybe more of us understand what that is, but that simply means that your body requires a smaller amount of insulin to do the job of moving blood sugar to be put into the bloodstream, to be stored in muscle cells, to be stored in our liver, and then ultimately to store energy and fat if we don't have room in those three places. So we want less insulin to do that job, and therefore we want to have insulin out of our system more of the time as well. And so this is insulin sensitivity is in the opposite direction as things like insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, heart disease, death. Like that's how that track goes, okay? Also, if we have robust mitochondrial health, what the hell does that mean? Our mitochondria are the energy producing units of our cell. They create ATP. That is the energy that they make. And so essentially what makes a mitochondria healthy? So in each cell, this will just be the most like nerdy part of this. If you remember, like high school biology or even middle school, so the cell has these little organs, these little organelles in them, and they all have different functions. And one of those little organelles is our mitochondria that makes energy. Anyway, so things that indicate mitochondrial health, your mitochondria are efficient. That means that they create energy without creating a lot of metabolic waste. And newsflash, sugar creates a lot of metabolic waste. Fat burns very cleanly. When your mitochondria are flexible, and that's again, that metabolic flexibility, the ability to burn sugar, times of stress, ability to burn fat, switch back and forth between them easily. Being numerous, and so that means having enough of them, a lot of them, especially in our muscle. And that kind of pairs in with having a substantial amount of muscle and muscle that we use. Resilient, that means that they can handle stress without breaking down, that they are low in oxidative damage. And what that means is that they're not constantly inflamed. And again, that's another kind of sugar cast off. Sugar is inflammatory as well as creating a lot of metabolic waste. And so when we have this mitochondrial health, our mitochondria are healthy, that means that we have stable energy versus dips and crashes. We have good metabolic flexibility. It's easier to burn fat. Thank you so much. We have better recovery when we exercise, and we have a better aging trajectory. Thank you. And then nervous system regulation simply means that we experience stress and then we come back down. So we get dysregulated, we get on a state of high alert, alarm from whatever that might be, a speeding car coming towards us, the fucking news, but then we can come down. And I think that's a really important distinction to make for anything, anybody. It's unreasonable to believe that we will live in some sort of like perfect homeostasis state, which means that we're in this kind of calm, what do I want to say? Our parasympathetic nervous system is the one that's activated, which means that we feel calmer, our metabolism is higher, we feel more relaxed. That's not life. But what is healthy in life is to feel fucking jacked up because of any given thing, and then to be able to regulate, to come back down, and for stress hormones to come back down, like adrenaline and cortisol. We will talk about cortisol kind of a lot. All right. So what is going on in the body when we are in perimenopause or menopause? So essentially, our estrogen stops doing the metabolic labor because it has reduced. So it's not doing the job that it once did. So before perimenopause, estrogen increased insulin sensitivity. We're going to kind of like say the same thing from a variety of angles. That is what we are doing tonight. It helps shuttle glucose into the muscles. Thank you. It supports mitochondrial efficiency. and it buffers cortisol and inflammation. Amazing. But when estrogen fluctuates, blood sugar becomes harder to regulate. That's like, we can both have highs and lows with that. That's like I'm feeling like all jacked up or even shaky, or then I can even feel shaky at the bottom of that trough. I have no energy. I need to like crawl to a donut. I need coffee in the morning. Insulin stays elevated for longer. And insulin blocks our body fat from being able to be used, creates more of an insulin resistant environment. Fat storage shifts towards the abdomen, and stress hormones rise more easily. Like, oh yay. And so what's so confusing, I feel like, for women is that we have the same lifestyle, but the results, but we have worse results unless we have an upgraded metabolism. So number 2, blood sugar instability becomes obvious. So perimenopause exposes hidden glucose dysregulation. So the thing that I think is really great to keep reminding ourselves of is that if things are shitty now, that estrogen is fluctuating and diminished, it doesn't mean that the problem is estrogen. It indicates that there was a problem all along, and because estrogen isn't buffering things or kind of like, you know, fixing it. This sounds so female as well. Like estrogen has been doing like the metabolic labor, like just kind of like, I'll just clean things up. Like you won't even know I was here. You were late, you know, you worked hard. Let me help you. But anyway, basically your underpinnings are just being exposed. So hidden glucose dysregulation. So now when we don't have that buffering from estrogen, we have bigger spikes after carbohydrates. We have crashes, blood sugar wise, that drive anxiety, cravings, and irritability. And then we have nighttime hypoglycemia and or that 2 to 4 a.m. wake-ups. A lot of women talk about that, hot flashes and racing thoughts. And this is, again, why women say, I didn't change anything, but suddenly my body is different. And basically the margin for error has just reduced. Number 3, cortisol takes over when metabolism can't cope. And what that means is when your fuel access is inefficient, cortisol steps in. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol is a sugar burning hormone. So when cortisol rises, its function is to raise blood sugar. It's to give you quick access to easy fuel. So it's, the thing I love about the body is that it's so smart, it's so wise. Its primary function is to keep you alive, and if conditions are suitable for you to be able to reproduce. That's it. It's like we want to keep you here, and then we want to like double your numbers if possible. So cortisol is a hormone that rises when we have to take action. That's really what it's meant for. Fight or flight, quick fuel. But in our modern day, we're not always having to like run from a tiger when we see some, you know, crap online, or, you know, we have a fight with our partner, but it's like no one's at threat. So that hormone being released is to give us energy to actually protect ourselves. But when we don't need to do that, it lingers and does other damaging things. But the body, if it can't access fat and it needs energy, it'll raise cortisol to have access to blood sugar. So it's not the best way to have access to energy, but the body is doing what it needs to. It's adjusting another lever based on its requirements. So when the body leans on cortisol, the body leans on cortisol to mobilize energy because it can't access fat. Cortisol raises blood sugar, which raises insulin, which stores fat. And so I'll just say, this is a little tip that I share with my fat burners. If you feel a pop of stress, a really good way to handle that is to actually move. So to not have this blood sugar, insulin, fat storage chain be going on, you can kind of head that off at the pass by literally like moving your body, whether that is, I'm gonna run up a flight of stairs, I'm gonna do 10 jumping jacks, I'm gonna like do squat jumps, I'm gonna like pump my arms as I sit in the car in traffic. All of that will actually use that blood sugar because that's what it's meant for, okay? But in a perimenopausal state, if we don't have solid metabolic underpinnings and we can't access energy easily, cortisol just starts to rise to give us the energy that we actually need. And visceral fat grows due to that cortisol response. I don't 100% understand this yet, which is why when cortisol when it rises, that the nature is to store that fat in our stomachs. I'm not 100% sure why that is. Again, everything is for like survival, but that is a little element that I don't fully understand, but that is what happens. Anyway, so the classic pattern when we have higher levels of cortisol is increased belly fat. We have this wired but tired energy. We have poor sleep, and we have mood volatility. So this is not a hormone deficiency problem. This is actually a stress fuel mismatch. We're using this stress hormone to give us the fuel that we need. But we don't need the stress hormone. We just need the fuel. So, number 4, ultimately our mitochondria decide everything. And what that means is our cellular engines, I had to like dig a little more on this, so bear with me. Basically, so our mitochondria are our cellular engines. They create energy. With age and chronic overfeeding, which is how a lot of us eat, which is frequently, multiple times in the day, people eat a lot of food. In general, people eat a lot of food. They eat frequently, which means that they store more of it as fat, but a lot of people will just like overeat because the food, in many respects, we're eating, I'm going to say poorer quality food, lower nutrient food, and when the body feels like it's not getting what it needs, it will keep calling out for more. So when we have that, as well as constant insulin, which happens when we're eating frequently, we don't have, and then we have this compromised system where insulin isn't clearing as quickly, so we keep insulin in our system more often, and we're not exercising, we'll get to that. Basically our mitochondria become inefficient. This is poor metabolic health, mitochondrial health, sorry. Our cells become energy starved despite eating plenty. Talk about this, what this actually means. And fat loss stalls and fatigue rises. So what this actually means is that because we're kind of overfed and undernourished, because we eat often and we're not potentially moving very much, we have more fuel than we do energy demand. So what ends up happening in our cells, this is like, I'll just say, I would love to learn more about this as well. I wish like there was like a body of science that was so clear like around this that I could study. But basically our electron transport chain backs up. So what this does, because it's like we're not putting fuel in and then using that as energy, it's like we're putting fuel in, but we're actually not using it. So this creates reactive oxygen species, oxidative stress, and signaling that tells our cells to down-regulate glucose entry. So this is where insulin resistance begins. Basically, we're kind of feeding ourselves more than we're using, and there's like this backlog in the cell. And so we're storing fat, but it starts to impact how the cell actually works, how the mitochondria actually works. I hope that was clear. So perimenopause exposes this quickly. So women, this is so helpful, make a note of it. Women with higher muscle mass, more insulin sensitive bodies, regular fasting windows, and that do strength training have far fewer symptoms. So it's like, oh, okay. Higher muscle mass, insulin sensitivity, regular fasting windows, thank you so much, and strength training equals far fewer symptoms. So why robust metabolic health changes everything? When our metabolism is strong, insulin clears quickly, fat can be accessed easily, that's that metabolic flexibility. Cortisol doesn't need to overfire. We don't need to rely on that hormone for energy because we can access our fat. Inflammation stays low. Insulin raises inflammation. Burning sugar raises inflammation. Oxidative stress raises inflammation. Sleep stabilizes. Moods even out. Thank you so much. And belly fat reduces versus accumulates. Symptoms many women expect: weight gain, anxiety, depression, hot flashes, brain fog. These become optional and not inevitable. So this is why also hormone replacement therapy alone often disappoints women. I've heard of a lot of women going on it and then coming off. Some get on it and think it is absolutely amazing, and that is great. But that's not really the issue. Hormones don't fix insulin resistance. They don't fix mitochondrial dysfunction. They don't fix chronic cortisol elevation, and they don't fix a loss of muscle. So the main message in all of this is that perimenopause is not a breakdown. It's actually a stress test. So if your metabolism is fragile, your symptoms will be abundant, apparent, loud. If your metabolism is resilient, your body will just adapt. The goal is not to replace hormones forever. The goal is to build a body that doesn't panic or buckle when hormones fluctuate. And so what actually builds metabolic resilience? Eating in a way that lowers insulin regularly, that is eating less often, having some time in the day where you are not eating, building and preserving muscle, training mitochondria to burn fat, reducing chronic cortisol activation because we can access that fat, and creating fuel flexibility versus dependence. So, I hope that sheds a little light on how this actually works. And I'll just say, I started at the beginning. I didn't understand, like people would talk about perimenopause or menopause, and I just thought, oh, wow, okay. But it's like, I'm not experiencing this. This is not an inevitability. It will be caused or not based on how your metabolism is working, how your mitochondria are functioning. So if you're a woman over 40 who would like to create metabolic resilience and to sidestep all of these bogus symptoms, most women, when they get into their 40s or they're dealing with such symptoms, typically weight is like one of the more commonly struggled with side effects, belly fat. But if you're someone that, like, if any of this resonates or makes sense to you and you would like to change how you function so you don't deal with this stuff, please consider getting your body into a fat burning mode. Please consider Fat Burning Pro. We have a 5 and a 13-week program, but the whole goal is to create this setup, what we're talking about here. Insulin sensitivity, metabolic flexibility, mitochondrial health, nervous system regulation, a lowering of cortisol in your body in general. So if you would like to lose 8 to 15 pounds in a month by getting a better metabolic setup, and making weight loss easier, weight gain harder, slowing aging, having a better aging trajectory, please consider doing such a thing. Please check out our sugar quiz. I'll attach this underneath this video, which will just expose what fuel you're burning predominantly. And if it's sugar, that means you are not in a metabolically healthy state because of all of the shit that goes along with it. You could be on the spectrum and not in an extreme situation, and then maybe you are relying on strength training more. Maybe you are reducing your carbohydrates. Maybe you are reducing your meal frequency. That would be amazing. But if you are kind of like locked in and feeling pretty burdened by where you are and what's happening, and you would like to change that, just know that that is available to you. Okay? So please be in touch for any reason. Please check out that quiz, see where you fall. And if you would like to check out that quiz, there are videos following if you would like to watch them. And there's an opportunity to set up a time for a free call if you would like to have a conversation about where you are and where you might wish to go. All right? Change is possible, should you desire. Okay, that's it. I hope that was amazing. Please be in touch for any reason. Love to you, and until next time.